Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Global Self-Love Project. My name is Mark J. Wagner, and this is my video blog. And our goal here at the Global Self-Love Project is to create a community of happy, healthy people around the world full of self-love and kindness. All right, so today we want to talk about trauma bonding. And well, trauma bonding is actually a psychological response to a traumatic experience, which can lead to a very deeply ingrained and often unhealthy bond between two people. Now, this bond can actually be very, very difficult to break and can lead to the perpetuation of harmful relationship behaviors. Now, in this blog post, I would like to just explore trauma bonding with you and how to identify it in relationships, where it comes from, and what a person needs to do to heal from it. All right, now let's take a closer look. Trauma bonding occurs when two people have experienced trauma either together or separate from each other, but the same type of trauma. Now, this shared experience creates a bond between the two of them. And this bond can totally feel like a very strong kind of love, but in fact, it's a very unhealthy kind of love. In a trauma bond, the two people involved are bonded through the shared trauma experience rather than through a healthy, mutually beneficial kind of love or relationship. But how can we identify a trauma bond? Well, trauma bonding can be difficult to identify as it often feels like love. However, there are some signs that can indicate that a relationship may be based on trauma bonding. And these signs actually include a sense of dependence on the other person, even if they are abusive or harmful. Or they can also be, second, a feeling of addiction to the relationship, even if it's not healthy. Or third, a cycle of abuse and forgiveness where one partner repeatedly hurts one and the other just forgives. Four, a sense of being trapped in the relationship, even if it's not fulfilling or enjoyable. And five, a feeling of being unable to leave the relationship, even if the other person or one of them wants to. Now we want to examine, where does trauma bonding come from? Trauma bonding is often the result of a traumatic experience that two people have shared either together in the same experience or in separate situations, but the same type of trauma. So, for example, if two people have experienced childhood abuse, and that doesn't have to mean always sexual abuse, but it could be mental, emotional abuse just as much, then a trauma bond can arise from them actually understanding the wounds of the other. If neither one of them has healed such wounds, it can create a trauma bond. But it could also come from like a natural disaster they've experienced together or separate from each other, a car accident or a violent situation where they got mugged or got into a fight or something like that. When two people experience trauma together or separate from each other, it can create a bond between them that is based on survival rather than healthy mutual love for each other. Now let's see what a person would need to do in order to heal from trauma bonding. So healing a trauma bond can be very difficult and a very complex process. It actually often requires the help from a therapist or a counselor or a coach who actually specializes in such things. And some steps that a person can take to heal from trauma bonding may include recognizing and acknowledging the trauma bond. That's the first thing. If you don't know what's going on, how can you heal it, right? Then the second thing is they might seek help from a professional coach, therapist, or counselor. Then also setting boundaries with the other person, including possibly ending the relationship if they cannot respect those boundaries. or engaging in self-care activities such as exercise, meditation, or spending time with supportive friends and family. And 5, working on building healthy relationships with others. That is also very crucial because the more healthy relationships you form in your life, the lesser you will be likely to go into a non-healthy relationship. Now let's see why it is often difficult for a couple with a trauma bond to get to a healthy relationship. Or is it even possible? You know? So it can be very difficult for a couple with a trauma bond to get to a healthy relationship because the bond they share is based on trauma rather than on healthy love and respect. Now, this can actually lead to a cycle of abuse and forgiveness, where one partner repeatedly hurts the other but is forgiven, and then the cycle continues. Additionally, it can be very difficult for both partners to break the trauma bond, as it may feel like they are losing a part of themselves or their identity. So let me ask you this. Does your relationship maybe go from absolutely amazing and happy to, well, fighting and most horrific? Well, here's why. In a trauma bond, two people may actually inadvertently poke at each other's wounds, creating a cycle of hurt and harm. It is important for a person with trauma wounds to try and find a partner who is rather more healed or wholesome in order for the more unhealed person's wounds not to be poked intentionally. Now, people in a trauma bond relationship often go back and forth between great times and the most horrific times because the trauma bond is a cycle of abuse and forgiveness. The abuser may show affection, remorse, and make promises of change, creating a sense of hope in the victim that the relationship can be healthy. Well, this can lead to periods of peace and happiness in the relationship. However, the abuser will most likely revert to their old abusive behavior, creating the same cycle of hurt and harm over and over again. And I'm sure if you are in such a relationship, you have experienced this. All right, so now let's talk about the vicious cycle. Now, in an abusive relationship and a trauma bond relationship, most of the time is at least emotionally abusive. We often see the breakup, makeup dynamic because the victim might feel trapped or doesn't want to leave because of the promises and the experiences during the good times, which are getting more and more scarce the more often you break up and come back together. Now, the abuser might also use manipulation tactics such as guilt tripping, gaslighting, or even threatening the victim in order to keep them in the relationship. Additionally, the victim, they might feel, a sense of love and loyalty toward the abuser, even though they know the relationship is unhealthy. And this will only create a very unhealthy, vicious cycle that gets harder and harder to break the more often you go through it. You know, well, let me tell you a little bit something personal here. um, I myself had very unhealthy relationship patterns when I was younger, like I would say my late teens to my early 20s. I actually found myself in quite a few of these unhealthy breakup and makeup kind of relationships. And I at one point realized that I should kick myself for not getting out much earlier because deep down I knew I would never be able to have a happy relationship with that person. And the most annoying fact was that I wasted so much time with people who actually left me wounded and unhappy. But it's always like that, right? Afterwards, we're always a lot smarter. Now I would like to sum this up for you here. Don't waste another minute in an unhappy relationship, be it trauma bond or not, because what you're actually doing is you are letting someone of whom you know you will never be happy with in a relationship occupy that space in your life that someone else could take who might actually be able to make you happy beyond your belief. Let me say this again. You let someone occupy this space in your life that someone else could take if it wouldn't be occupied, right? Who could possibly make you happy beyond your wildest dreams. Now, okay, I think this is a very powerful message here, and I'm just going to leave you with this right here for now. Going on, moving on to the next slide. So now, if you would actually like to get help to overcome those wounds and patterns that have made you susceptible to be in a trauma bond or abusive relationship in the first place, then please don't hesitate. Go to the website phoenixrisingprogram.com. You can check it out. You literally have nothing to lose but everything to gain there. And I can also tell you honestly that people who have gone through the program, they're now living much happier, healthier lives, and are also able to create much healthier relationships with the people around them. So here we go. One last word, one last request to you. If you have found this video helpful, please share it with others who might go through a similar experience as you and who are interested in changing their life for the better and build happy, healthy relationships with themselves and others. Well, then please share this video with them and let's contribute to making this planet much more happier and more beautiful for all of us. All right. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I am looking forward to seeing you soon in one of our next videos.